my trimming here, or rather not some trimming, but some cleaning up of the edges a little bit. Let's get this cleaned up here. Nice. What I'm going to use here is some 180 grit sanding blocks. A lot's happened off camera. Kind of got ahead of myself. Was getting excited about the install and just didn't even get with the camera thing. A couple things I want to talk about that are important here. Feel free to fast forward, but hopefully I don't bore you guys too much since I didn't get to show it actually doing it on camera. First off, I did have to trim this down a little bit on the sides, as on the Explorer hood we have these indentions here, and you see the red line is where I marked where the lift actually begins. And it's still kind of close to that, but at this point it does flex enough where I'm not going to be too worried about it. I had to make it work for, you know, this application, knowing that this was a vent intended for a Corvette, right? So a C7 Corvette, I believe. So, you know, I'm making it work. You know, putting the round peg in the square hole is what I'm doing here, almost literally. Anyway, so what we're doing here is, the next thing I had to do was, because I didn't want this completely open, one, I didn't like the look of it open, but two, you know, it just kind of keeps critters and whatever out, maybe, you know, who knows. But I like the look of a screen material. Now, just FYI, this particular screen material is anything custom. It's something that you can find at your local hardware store. I've been using it for years on my custom bike builds, on anything I want to cover a screen with. It's very easily manipulated, and you can get this at Home Depot. It's just some gutter guard right here. It's like $5, like a 3 foot by 6 inch. You're gonna have to flatten it, and it's very, very trimmable using some good quality tin snips. My particular tin snips are some Alcos, you know, made in the USA, of course. Nothing but the best here. But I've been using this for years. Now, this is galvanized steel. It's not aluminum. I wish it would be aluminum, but it's not. So that being said, there's a couple things you can galvanize. We'll be fine with weathering for the most part, but over time it may develop rust points in certain areas as the galvanization, or where I've cut it and exposed the metal underneath, begins to rust. A couple things you can do there. You can powder coat this once you get it trimmed to whatever you want. I remember in the past I used to chrome them on the bike builds I used to do, when I would put them on the sport bike, open vents on the sides, you know, just for the look, building some show bikes. You can get it chromed. Thing about chrome is it's into a powder coat. Once it's done, you don't want to bend it too much, and this stuff bends very easily, so it'll crack and flake off. I'm gonna leave it as it is for now, and see where it goes. So anyway, Home Depot, like $5-6, I think, maybe even cheaper. Also made in the USA. Here's the label. Oh yeah, by the way, this stuff, once you start cutting into it, is a hardcore widowmaker. I cut myself every time I mess with this stuff, no matter how much I try. It's kind of difficult to use gloves with it, so you pretty much have to be careful. Look at that. Woo! These things will send you home with a bunch of band-aids on. Anyway, this was the mock-up piece that I had initially to get one side, and then I kind of mirrored it, created one piece. It's tedious work, measuring. You don't want to cut too much. You buy a couple extra pieces so that you can, if you mess up, because it's pretty much going to take most of one piece. You won't be able to get two pieces out of one. So get a couple just in case you mess up. They're cheap enough, but you always want to cut not enough and then trim it down slowly. You know, as you start sizing it up, as you start making bends one at a time. It's very tedious work, and it takes time. So I wish I would have shown that on video, but it was probably about a 2-hour job getting it just right. So anyway, like I said, this thing will draw blood without a doubt, so be prepared. Anyway, this is the finished piece. Mocked up, of course, on the vent. There's a couple things, as you see, I'm doing with it still. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can secure this. I used, to make these bends very straight and nice, obviously I used a very good straight edge, some Sharpie, and then I used this, my also made in the USA, Wilton bullet vise with some flat jaws. There's no serrations in this. This comes in handy. You can buy these separately, but I prefer the flat jaws when you're doing any type of fabricating. And just use a rubber mallet and just bend it nice and straight. So anyway, that's some of the tools of the trade. Anyway, a couple of ways to secure this to this, right? What I would do in the past is use some clear silicone and just put a really thick bead on the under piece, and then put this on, kind of push it through so it would ooze through the pores, and maybe put a little bit more and kind of spread it a little bit, you know, and kind of do this. It's really thick, and it basically acts like glue. It will, and it works very, very well. However, it's very permanent for the most part. So if you don't ever intend to taking it off, it's a good way to go. But it's kind of ugly from the inside. I decided, at least for now, to use some hardware because I still need to get this clear coated. This is raw carbon fiber. You need to get this UV clear coated, otherwise it's eventually going to crack in the sun. So, so at least for mock-up purposes, I was going with this. Obviously, I drilled some holes, so maybe it's not a great idea to go away from this. But since I also need to take it off for when it gets painted, I'm using some stainless hardware with washers for now. I actually like the look, to be honest with you, and I may end up sticking with it. Instead of rivets, which you can remove, but you have to drill, whatnot. Anyway, this is number 8 by 32 stainless hardware socket cap screws with a stainless 316, all 316 stainless washers. Same thing with the nylock on the end. The nylock is kind of the best way to go so it doesn't vibrate loose. I'd rather use this than a lock washer and a regular nut. Anyway, so this is how I secured it. It's pretty sturdy. Underneath here, it's wedged in that little tiny groove right there. So it's pretty stout. Anyway, so that is the mounting of the screen. And it looks pretty good when you install it. I'll show you guys here. See. Alright, so next thing I needed to do was get the mounting holes for how I'm going to mount it to the hood. So because this is somewhat aesthetically, I wanted it aesthetically pleasing, the holes had to be evenly spaced so that when you look at it on the hood, it doesn't look like it's just random. You know, you want it to look halfway decent. Unfortunately, since this thing is handmade, the measurements are just off just a tiny bit. Not enough, imperceptible, but if you take a ruler to it, the measurements are kind of off a little bit. Not a big deal. What you have to do is kind of find a happy medium. I decided to go with 6 total in the front, 6 total in the back. I'm going to use the same hardware with the washer. I do not have any on the side because of this right here. And as soon as I put a washer on there, it won't sit flat. I had to trim it down too much. Unfortunate part of my application. If you have a very flat hood, you wouldn't need to do that, and you can go on the side. Now I'm going to see, underneath here also is going to be some 3M double-sided weather-resistant heavy-duty tape as well, so it's going to be on there pretty good. This hardware is just to keep that from ever blowing off if it ever, the tape ever gives. But, so what I did is I did some even measurements. I wanted here and here. Now, some of you might be wondering why I didn't go right in the center, because if I was going to do right in the center, I'd have put one right in here. Now you guys see some other marks here. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to use some Nutserts. I'm not going to drill all the way. I'm going to drill all the way through, but I'm not going to use a nut on the backside. I'm going to use some Nutserts that I've got. Put some Nutserts that way from the top. I don't have to get all weird by reaching under here and tightening it while I'm holding the top, so on and so forth. What I have here is I've marked, because of underneath the hood there are some areas what I consider exclusion zones, and I didn't want to drill a hole into because of what's underneath. So I marked those, and I cannot have any hardware anywhere in these X spots. The back, because of the arrangement underneath here, I've got free reign. It's just the front. So I could put one here, but if I was going to put one in the middle, it would have ended up being right around here. So I have to put one here, which means I had to put one here. We'll see how it holds down, but I want to make it look aesthetically pleasing. You can see the outline. of the it kind of goes over the red mark here a little bit. It's imperceptible when it's on the hood, so you know, it's one of those things. Anyway, you also see some graduation marks here, just so that this thing is completely parallel to the hood, so it doesn't look all cattywampus. That's official word there from the dictionary. Look it up. I want this thing to look straight. So anyway, everything is measured twice, 3, 4 times, because you only want to cut once. So there is that. Next thing is the holes themselves. So you want these holes to line up 100% with this and what's underneath. Instead of measuring and marking, obviously this is what's going to show. So this is where you're going to make your initial, after you've discovered and found the place that you can't make holes. What I did is I transcribed those onto the green tape. Here, this area, you see those marks? This is the area I didn't want to drill. It's kind of close. Same thing with here, and then here as well on this side. So it's very close here, but we're good here. So what I did is made these relatively as close as I can to evenly spaced, spreading the measurements out. A lot of calculations, measurements, using micrometers to get the exact point. So once you get where you want it, drill. This is not the final hole size. You want to drill a very tiny hole, very tiny pilot hole on this component first. And what I went with was a 3/64, right? 3/64 hole. Of ultimately 3/16 is the drill bit you want to use for number 8 hardware. But right now we're going with 3/64 just to punch a hole. So what you're going to do there is once you drill all those holes, really you only need to drill one, to be honest with you, to get started with, but what you're going to do is, I drilled all those initial holes. Then, as you can see the holes, the lines are marked. We got these lined up like this. So then once it's mounted, I've got all these tiny little holes. I use a very, very tiny marker on any one of these holes. I went with then, when you've got this mounted, you can use any one of these holes that you've used. Make sure this is situated exactly where you want to put it, the angle, and so on and so forth. Start with 1. In this tiny hole, I made a mark right through it with a tiny little marker. I wouldn't use a punch with the aluminum hood. I use a little marker. Made a little mark on 1 only 1. Pull this out, and then drilled the 3/16 hole here. So what I'm going to do here is drill this out to the Nutsert. This is only one. Don't do any of them yet. Drill that out to the Nutsert. Install the Nutsert. Put the grill back in. Then put the hardware in there, real nice and tight. And then once that thing is set in there with 1 hardware, then I'm going to go down the line, making tiny little holes on all of them. Because the last thing you want to do is drill holes in this, and then take your measurements, drill holes in this, and expect every one of them to line up perfectly. It won't happen. I don't care how careful you are. And the next thing you know, you've got this thing that's at a funny angle, or you got a bolt hole that isn't lining up, and then you start drilling bigger holes. So start with 1, get that secured completely, and then go on from there. All right. What I'm going to do is just get the holes drilled for the hose. Here's the piece that got cut out. If you can see here, And here are the holes for the windshield washer hose, like little strap thingies. Centered. And make the mark. Come on, come on, come on. These are the parts I'm using, 1/4 inch, and this is a number 6x32, like a compression. Expansion plug. These are the stock ones that came out. Easier to disassemble, but they got destroyed pulling them out. And then the holes I drilled were a little too large, so couldn't reuse them. So I kind of had a little bit of change of plan on the mounts that I'm gonna use for this. Kind of made the holes a little bit too large, but anyway. So what I'm gonna do first, mount these. This is the windshield washer hose, and what we're gonna do is it's gonna be right there. These are 1/4 inch hose, stainless. This is number 6 hardware, expanding daily boppers. Okay. All right, as mentioned, started with this little pilot hole, little 3/64 pilot hole. Those Nutserts need a 17/64 hole be drilled, so that's what I'm doing now. These are the Nutserts that I was talking about. Here's the part number, also from McMaster car. So these are aluminum, and if you can see underneath there, these are meant for soft metals. You see the little spiky ridges underneath there? Not along the shaft, but along the head. Those are meant for biting into soft metals like aluminum or brass. So these are the ones you want to use for the aluminum hood. So, and this is the tool we use. It's kind of the manual hand rivet nut tool. They do make like different versions, hydraulic or like a hand pump style, but this is let's get you by like $25 or something. Okay, screw this thing all the way. Screw this thing all the way onto here till it's just snug. And it's supposed to fit. So problem is, yeah, there's an issue. So let's see here. Okay, I added a spacer right there. So here's what we do. We hold this, and this has got a reverse thread. So as you tighten it, go. Be interesting to see how that looks. And here we go with the installation of the hardware. It's nice and snug. There. Now, what we'll do is transcribe all the other points, because this thing is actually, probably what I'll do is I'll do one more. I'll probably do one up here in the front, and then do all of them. All right, let's keep it moving. Gonna do a I really don't like doing that. Okay. Okay, this is mounted on there, snug but not tight. Now we do that, and the wrench. And this is what tightens it down. There's actually left-hand threads on this piece right here, and so as you turn it right, it actually starts raising and compresses the Nutsert there. Now, as you start tightening this, you'll feel it when it gets to the point where it's done. It'll get really tough. It'll get real hard. So you got to do this by feel, slowly. A bit at a time. This is our wrench. Uh-oh. This doesn't feel right. It just got loose all of a sudden. It's not a good sign. Something just happened. It's not a good sign. Okay. I don't know what that was all about. Huh. Interesting. This is not good. Okay, well. Not really as intended. I gotta replace that Nutsert. That's the nature of the beast. Sometimes they strip a little bit. So that one I'm gonna have to replace. Installed. fix this hood up a little bit.